A playlist original.
All right, hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Back to the Blockbuster with your hosts Gaius and Jackson. Recording on a Tuesday today, which is very different for us, but very very happy that we're doing it on a Tuesday because it was a very
Post
long
St. Patty's,
St. Patrick's
yeah.
yeah, St. Patrick's Day weekend, and like I told Jackson offline, I would have totally powered through recording yesterday, but low key happy that he was like, "Can we do it Tuesday this week?" And I was just like, "Yes, yes, that's fine, thank you." It was very festive week, very festive weekend for both of us. I think I probably did a lot more than Jackson did because he's smarter than me and actually like stayed home on Sunday. But it was a fun weekend and a great time with friends. I didn't get to watch a lot of stuff, of course, because it was packed weekend, but.
Funny you mentioned that because I was just looking through my letterbox diary today actually before we sat down and record, and I'm so behind just tracking wise for March. I think I've only recorded 6 watches this month, whereas normally I'd be almost double at this pace. We're on, as of recording, we're the 19th day of the month. I have 6 movies logged. It's I'm way behind. It's been a busy month for whatever reason. But did get in our anniversary episode. I guess those have been most of my watches have been our anniversaries. But for fun, I've only really watched a couple movies this month, which is unfortunate. But I'm with you though. I haven't been as busy, but I haven't watched a lot of Ozark, so that's been fun. I'm on the final season of that and really enjoying that show.
Great show. See, I actually do watch that one, so yeah, I don't have to.
Nice. There we go. Okay, so we should chat that when we're done at some point when I'm done the season. Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have to look at me like, why the hell have you not watched that show before? Breaking Bad.
I've been loving a lot of it, liking some of it, but I have heard some conflicting things about how the show wraps up. So I'll be interested to see kind of what camp I'm in by the time the show is all over, because I'm a couple episodes into the final season, and I'm just interested to see where everyone is going to wind up. But interested to chat that. How long ago did you wrap it up? In 2022 when season 4 ended?
Yeah. I was when I watched it. I watched each season as they came out because
nice. Okay.
It looked really good when they first were running trailers for the first season and stuff. I was like, I'll check that out. And I always Jason Bateman always surprised me when he does serious stuff. I know I
love when he does drama. Before.
Yeah. Because he is really really funny. But when he does drama, it's usually really good. And I also like Laura Linney as well. She's a great actress too. So they're really great to get together. And actually that whole cast is really good. The acting is really good on the show. But I know there's some there has been some kind of when I watched it, not every episode is stellar. There's some kind of I don't know how I felt about some of that, but overall it was a good show. So but I wish I had time to get watches, and I was gonna watch there's this documentary called Quiet on the Set, and it's about I guess all the stuff that was going on in Nickelodeon back in the day, all these kind of allegations of sexual abuse and all this stuff. And I heard it's really good, but it was way too heavy to try to watch that yesterday, and I was I'll try to watch it sometime this week because I was I'm not in the best mood to watch something like that probably.
Come to think of it, I do remember at some point, and I don't want to spitball and try and label the person from Nickelodeon that gets the flack for being a creep, but somebody I remember seeing one exec from either, I don't know if it was a show or just one of a studio exec for Nickelodeon is notorious for just being really weird around the kids or something. Is it about that person?
Yeah, so and a lot about there's one person specifically. They talk about from what I heard a few things that were going on just at Nickelodeon. I think it profiles 3 different people. But this main one, this guy named Brian Peck, he was also an actor back in the day too, before he started doing Nickelodeon stuff. And all this stuff started coming out again because he was on a few episodes of Boy Meets World, and they have their podcast as well where they rewatch the show and talk about the episodes, but they also, in addition to talking about the episodes, they also talk about basically what it was like to be kids at that time and kind of how they adjusted to all that and all the kind of issues that go along with that sometimes in that industry. And Ryder Strong talked about how he was hanging out with them when they were 14, 15 years old, and he was way older than them. So but they never looked at it as a weird thing then, because it was kind of normal, I guess, because that industry is like that. Sometimes kids do hang out with older people in the industry. It's just like how it goes sometimes. But they learned a lot about him, I guess, after the fact, and when like all the Nickelodeon stuff started coming out. And so like they were talking about it on their podcast, and then this documentary was also coming out. So like, yeah, he it's crazy because he didn't spend a lot of time in jail. I think he got like 15 months for all the stuff that he did. And
which was what exactly? I don't remember the nature of like the charges against this guy. Like, was it like sexual in nature?
Yeah. So one of the main, like, I think Drake Bell from Drake and Josh was like one of them. That when he was 15, that was one of the that he alleged that like he did something to him, and like a few other people came out, and it's just crazy how much people did come out. And then for what he did, it didn't seem like a lot of time. And then even after that, he still somehow managed to work on kid related shows after he got out. So that was another thing that was like crazy. Like, but yeah, it's interesting, just, I don't know, it's just crazy how that stuff works. Like, you think kids are kind of be like safe in that kind of environment, you would hope, being around a bunch of adults, and it just turns out like, and a lot of those kids' parents, like, they are kind of like a little hands off too, because they're like, they're basically letting like directors and producers almost babysit, because because like some parents, they haven't been in the industry at all. Some of them are just getting into it when their kids get into it, so they're trusting all these other people to kind of take care of their kids, and like that was not
always the play.
Yeah. But yeah, definitely gonna check it out this week. I just could not do it yesterday. I was like, way too heavy. Try to watch that. But I'm excited that we have some big news. It was interesting. It was interesting when I was like trying to schedule out the episodes. Like, I scheduled out, like, we have an AI episode that's got scheduled for April 1st now, and then we had like a kind of short news episode that we recorded, and then, as is the case sometimes when we record like on the Monday, the next day all of a sudden there's just a bunch of stuff. So like I kind of scheduled that one out like over the weekend, so that episode came out over the weekend, because I wanted to kind of have this one be like a really big, like, fresh news show, because it is a lot of stuff that we're covering. Some really exciting news, some of it not so exciting.
It's like 50-50 today. It's like some's negative stuff we are not happy to be reporting on, and like other is like some big news kind of that came out of nowhere that's been teased for a while. I mean, the first thing we got on the docket today, I'll let you lead off with. This is news I'm sure a lot of people are going to be surprised that there's finally something going on with this role, and somebody this comes down to somebody that was eyed for a particular role for a while now. I mean, speaking just for myself, I didn't know when this news was gonna come. I knew it was kind of around the corner, but it seemed to have been that way for months now. But yeah, without any further ado, why don't you talk about some big news over in Britain right now?
Yeah, so we might actually have, or it seems like we actually have a new James Bond. They said that Aaron Tyler Johnson has formally been offered the chance to play James Bond. Now, right now, this is kind of like, it feels like a rumor, but like a lot of people are picking it up. So I was like, it could be like, really legit this time. Maybe they've had meetings or something where it's like they're willing to run that story as like, it seems like this is where this is headed. He had been a part of the discussion, a group of guy actors in the running for it. A lot of people like listed him as a favorite of theirs to play the role, and it looks like he will finally be getting it. He looks the part. I think he's a pretty good actor. Like, I've liked him in some of the stuff I watched him in. This is a franchise though that I go back and forth on, where it's like I enjoy them. I especially like the Daniel Craig ones, right? But I don't have like a total dog in the fight. I'm like, oh, who's going to be the next one? I've always kind of like toyed with the idea. Like, I remember when they were like saying like Henry Cavill was like someone that they really wanted to do it.
Right.
I remember the whole Idris Elba thing, and then that was a whole debate of like, oh, can we have a Black James Bond? And that was a whole other conversation.
Right.
And then Tom Hardy was on that list too, for people that they were thinking about as well.
If he was younger, I think that would have been a great casting too.
There was even after he won his Oscar, a little brief murmurs about Cillian Murphy, and I was like, I I don't see it.
I saw that
but,
too. Yeah, I mean, just probably a little old. I think like the direction they want to take Bond is more suited for someone like Aaron Taylor Johnson's age. I think he's great. I think this really, his whoever his agent or whoever wanted to put him in the Bullet Train movie from 2022, that was very much, I think, a showcase for him, like his pitch of becoming Bond, and that has now appeared to have paid off. I remember that was like up in the atmosphere when he took that role, and like I actually have just been seeing, since this news is broken, just more shots of him from Bullet Train just strutting around like in his suit, looking very, it's a kind of an espionage-esque role for him. And I think he looks great. Like, cut some of that hair off and give him a more distinguished look. And I think he would slide right into the Bond role perfectly. I think it's great casting. I mean, I think there are a lot of people, a lot of talented actors right now that would be great for that role. Not mad at all that it seems to have gone to Aaron Taylor Johnson, the other ATJ in Hollywood right now. The other one being Anya Taylor-Joy. I was thinking about that today. But yeah, I don't know how old he is all the time. I'm going to look it up right now. But do you happen to know?
Yeah, he's 33, so it's a good age. I mean, like, so he could do 4 or 5 of these.
100%.
As Daniel Craig, it was so weird that he was in his 30s when he started it, and like, certainly a role that aged him, because it's a lot of it's a lot of work. I know Daniel Craig got like hurt on one of them, or maybe it's a couple more than one of them.
I think he got hurt like progressively on each film. Yeah, the last one took a toll for sure.
So like Aaron Tyler Johnson's age is perfect, as like, he's young enough where he can stick around for a few movies, and they don't have to worry about getting anyone else anytime soon. So it's
right.
Age wise, it's great. I agree with the whole Bullet Train thing. It probably was like his like unofficial audition. It feels like for the part. And also he's a good actor, so I think it's good. They said that he could be signing on the dotted line this week, so probably this will become like an official news story soon. So that's it's crazy. Like all that time, they didn't want to rush looking for one either. I remember I think Barbara Broccoli, who's in charge of like all the Bond stuff, was very like adamant that they did not want to, especially after No Time to Die. We're not going to rush finding one. We need to let that one breathe, and we can take a little time to like, kind of regroup. And that was smart, instead of like, rushing into it. I was looking on like Twitter X to see how people felt about Aaron Tyler Johnson getting the role, and it seems like most people are pretty down with it. So
yeah, nice. Yeah. Well, looks like in the near future, I'm sure we will be reporting on some new Bond developments once they kind of get that ball rolling, and we'll probably see, news about a script being made and a director attached, and then cast getting rounded out over the next probably couple of years. So that's exciting to look forward to. I honestly I love the Bond, or the Daniel Craig Bonds. I honestly still haven't seen No Time to Die just haven't got around to it yet. But his first 4, for better or for worse, 1 and 3 are fantastic. 2 is okay, and I like Spectre for what it's worth. But I kind of, as much as like, I think a new direction would be good for that series. Like we did Daniel Craig's Bond very much was up to date, modern interpretation of the character. I would like to see something different with Aaron Taylor Johnson's, turn at the table. But I guess time will tell kind of what direction they're taking the series in and how bold and new they can make it. But I don't know. Overall excited news. So,
it's interesting too. I just looked too. Daniel Craig was in his 30s when he signed on for the role. He's 56 now, so Aaron Taylor Johnson will be in that position, which is crazy to think maybe that be out of that role in his 50s most likely. Which is ridiculous. I mean, like we talked about this before, when like I know how you feel sometimes when certain people get signed on to like these kind of franchises, and it's like, it dominates most of their their output into the industry, and you're like, hey, I wish they weren't like tied down to this big IP, so they could actually make kind of like smaller indies or some dramas or something else that's not just the IP. So I mean, he's doing Kraven the Hunter as well. So I mean, he's probably happy to happy to be involved in Bond. I'm not sure if he's personally seen Madam Web, or if he's like worried about what the final cut of Kraven the Hunter will be like.
Something tells me that's a one-picture deal. I can't imagine like just where the Sony universe is going. I don't see longevity there, and I don't have any I don't feel any differently with the Kraven the Hunter. I have a feeling that that'll just be a one and done role. Won't take up too much of his time, but definitely we'll be seeing most of his career in the next decade plus dedicated to these Bond movies, which, hey, if they're made well, if they're good, solid stories, then I will take them where we can get them. And Daniel Craig was able to seek out a couple movies during his Bond run, so maybe the same will be said for. I would like to, like, maybe not so much time in between his outings as Bond. Like, if they want to pump out 4 or 5 movies with a couple of years in between each, that would be kind of neat and not take up as much of his career. But again, we no idea really where they're going to go. I guess that conversation could start now that they have their Bond.
Yeah, but definitely.
Some franchises that are kind of been grinded to a halt. I don't know if this news broke today as of recording or if it had been out earlier, but we did get news that a few different Marvel stories have now been concluded. Not getting an Ant-Man 4, not getting a Captain Marvel 3, and what is the other one that we're not getting that was canceled?
No Eternals 2.
No Eternals 2. Shocker.
I keep hearing different stories about Eternals 2 where it seems like it's canceled, but then there was another story that said it might be morphing into another project because I don't think they want to.
Okay.
The big thing with Eternals. Here's what I'll say about that movie. When I saw that movie in theaters, I did not love it, but I did like it a bit more when I watched it when it came on Disney Plus, where I was like, I'm removed from like what I thought the movie was going to be because the cast was pretty good. It's really stacked for that kind of movie,
right?
And I was really looking forward to it, and I think that kind of like hype. And then we had a good director behind it too, and like so I was really hyped for it. And then it was kind of I thought it dragged at first when I first saw it, and I didn't really love it in the theater. But once I was removed from like whatever thoughts I had about what it was going to be, and I watched it again later, I was like, all right, it's not as bad as I thought it was.
I see. I've never seen it, so I can't really weigh in here.
I also don't think they want to necessarily. I mean, you got people like Angelina Jolie and Richard Madden, Kit Harington, and like all these kind of big actors. Barry Keoghan, like he was the best thing about that movie. Actually, he actually was really good in it. I don't think they necessarily want to lose that cast, so that could be why it might be morphing into something else if that story is true. But these 3 examples are 3 examples. They're like Eternals 2 is one of the lower grossing Marvel movies. Like they made like $400 million worldwide, which is like a $200 million budget though. So there's that. So it's expensive. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is one of the few Marvel movies to not break even because they had a huge budget. And then the Marvels is officially the lowest grossing MCU movie ever. So
I felt like this was all imminent news after, like you said, the last installment of each of these 3 franchises were all critical and mostly commercial misfire. So it doesn't, like we were saying this offline, kind of reiterating here, doesn't seem like quite the shock. Honestly, if anything, it kind of adds credence to Bob Iger's earlier conversation from a few months ago when he was during an interview said they would be focusing more on quality over quantity heading forward with the MCU, amidst the slew of disappointing box office returns. So honestly, as someone that's like, not a diehard MCU person, this is kind of like refreshing that those weren't just empty promises, that they do seem to be prioritizing where they are taking that universe. So instead of just, trying to say something and just hope for some good press out of it, it actually seems like he's backing that up. I don't know how many, these are definitely not like where the MCU is at the strongest is with any of these 3 franchises, I don't think. So it kind of makes sense to me that they would get the axe, especially with them not performing great lately. So, but like we said too.
That's good that that's also good that you said that too. Like this is a financial thing, it seems like. And also these are three examples creatively. I think Eternals has a 47% on Rotten Tomatoes. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania had a 46%. The Marvels fared a little better, but still low at 62%. So this is also an issue of they didn't make the necessary money, and I think they're also like how do we kind of recalibrate our creative juices? I guess because like we mentioned offline, right? I was saying that Marvel was known for taking risks, or the MCU when it started. You start with like Iron Man, you you cast Robert Downey Jr. That was a risk in and of itself at the time.
Right.
And then like since they didn't have the rights to some of their bigger characters yet, like X-Men was still with Fox, Fantastic Four was still with Fox. They weren't sharing Spider-Man with Sony yet, so they went with Iron Man and Thor, and these weren't like really big mainstream heroes as far as like like casual moviegoers wouldn't necessarily know everything about them. So they took a risk on that, and they were successful with it. So it is interesting that now they are kind of reversing that, and now they don't want to take as many risks.
Right.
Which,
to me now, just to piggyback off that, to me, with the performance of these last 3 movies in those 3 respective franchises, I don't think it would be risk taking at this point. I think it would just be bad investment. Like clearly, audiences didn't respond to the Marvels or Ant-Man 3 or Eternals. So therefore, I mean, logically, it would seem that, okay, so they don't want more of these. We're not going to make more. I think there's a lot of great other opportunities to take risks in the MCU. But to me, these just seem like bad investments. Like overall, smart decision, if you're asking me.
Yeah. And I think like each one of these movies has like individual problems that I think worked against it. Like
that too.
Starting with the Marvels, I remember those trailers. It felt like if you didn't watch like the Ms. Marvel show, or maybe even if you didn't watch WandaVision, where one of the other characters from that in that movie came from that show, so you had to watch WandaVision and Ms. Marvel.
It's like homework at that point.
Yeah. So and then I remember a lot of people said after they saw the Marvels, like I saw it, I didn't think it was bad, but it definitely was like it felt like a very early MCU movie rather than like a progression of what they've been doing. But it really did in a lot of ways feel like a Disney Plus show that was stretched out into like an hour and a half. So so there was that. I mean, Eternals I think had pacing issues and all that. It's really long. But there is, and another big problem with that is there's so many characters in that movie that you're introducing in that film, and they don't all get a proper amount of like screen time to like really get to know them. So you're plopping down a whole team and want your audience to like get to know all these people in this one film, and that makes that hard too. And then with Ant-Man and the Wasp and Quantumania, I think what people were confused by was using Kang the Conqueror as like the main villain in that movie, because Ant-Man's not really like a big superhero, so they were like, oh, they're introducing like Marvel's big bad in that movie, and then like it didn't really work out the way they wanted to, and it didn't work out the way they wanted to in a lot of ways for different reasons. But yeah, like those 3 projects had really certain things that worked against them. Now I don't know what they're gonna do with some of the post credit stuff that they introduced in these movies, because like Harry Styles got introduced in the post credit scene in Eternals. I don't know what they're gonna do with that. So there's like a lot of stuff.
I think they don't know what they're gonna do with a lot of things right now. Like we were just saying offline, that creative storyboard in the MCU room right now must be a disaster. I mean, obviously they're probably more ahead than it looks like right now, but this is at least what I would view as a step in the right direction. I think the biggest lesson that they need to learn though going forward is in their next movies, if they can control and make a modest budgeted movie. It's not throwing $200 and $250 million at these gambles or risks and end up having them, not perform, not make their budget back at the box office. That's really where it's going to mean the most, I think, going forward for the MCU. So time will tell. I don't even know. I genuinely don't know what their next project. I guess there's Deadpool 3 in July, but after that, I don't know what their next movie is.
Next year, I think it'd be the next year. I think it's the Thunderbolts one, which also keeps getting delayed.
Right, I heard something about that recently, but I didn't even know if that was their next scheduled one.
Yeah, so I mean, a friend actually brought this up to me because we were talking about this over the weekend, and he was saying like, Kevin Feige as Marvel head honcho has a pretty good track record of like kind of guiding all these projects. But my friend was like, well, maybe he needs someone else to kind of like help him, and like you kind of like, I guess, I don't know, like rein him in or like just make sure that like, I don't see how one person can oversee all that. And I know he did that for a while. And I'm sure there's other people
though,
yeah, and I'm sure there are other producers and stuff that like chime in, but he's the face of all this. A lot of people who have worked on these movies said that like, hey, he does put together a good creative team as far usually trying to with like directors and all that, but he runs that show. Like it's all him. And
Right.
maybe this is a case of like biting off a little bit more than you can chew now because you have the TV shows and you have all these movies. So I know maybe he does need a little like assistance to kind of like.
I completely agree. Whoever brought that up is definitely on the ball. I think we've seen signs of that for a while now, and it's kind of been ignored. And granted, you can have a couple slip ups. It doesn't mean that it's completely time to scrap what's going on and put someone else new in the driver's seat. But I think we've had enough slip ups and downright failures now that it is, I think, some help and some guidance, some creative alliance would go a long way for them. So you're right. I mean, one person can't do all this for as long as he's been doing it and just get away with it and come out completely unscathed on the other side. Like at some point, things are going to just have to change. Nothing can last forever. No cinematic universe. So this is unprecedented times really for the movie industry. So who even knows what's going to happen, but something needs to change. Absolutely. I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you look at it this way, and I know we haven't seen any of the new like DCU stuff yet, but on paper, like the way it's presented with like James Gunn and Peter Safran, you have one guy who is like going to be the creative head, the other guy is the producing money part of it. So like you have these two different people who are focusing on different aspects of running that, and and I think that is something maybe Marvel should have too, or at least like present that, because I've never heard of anyone helping in that way with Kevin Feige. I've always just heard it just being him. And now
absolutely, like you said, he's the face, right? Like who else even knows who is helping him out on these things? I think DC's future corporate structure is in a better spot than Marvel's is right now, and that who knows? Hopefully that does well for their future, their up and coming cinematic universe.
Yeah.
And speaking of which,
I didn't even mean to bring up DC like that, like knowing that our next story was a DC story. But this one hurt bad.
I was throwing chairs.
I was not happy. The Batman Part 2 is delayed until 2026. Which is so crazy. It was going to come out October 3rd, 2025, and now it's going to come out October 2nd, 2026. They said this has to do with the dual strikes, and that's why it got delayed. There are some other people that think that they also wanted to get it away from. They wanted like the new Superman movie that's coming out in 2025 to kind of have some space to itself and not have these, another DC movie eventually like competing with it, but the release dates weren't that close together.
I don't really buy that, but
I hope it's not some other like creative problem. I mean, the strikes thing makes sense, because they did have to stop writing and all that stuff, but that is a hefty delay. Because when did the Batman come out? That was in
March 2022.
2022.
So this will be close to 4 years after,
And I know we're gonna sound like
wrong here. It'll be closer to 5 years. It'll be 4 years and 9 months. Yeah, holy shit.
And I know we're gonna sound like total hypocrites because we're always like, hey, like don't rush these things. Make sure it's good. Well, this was a little different. I don't know. It felt like I was that's a long wait, but I definitely wasn't too thrilled. I mean, like, do you completely buy that the strikes were the only reason that caused the delay?
Honestly, like I just kind of took it at face value. I didn't really dive into any other, sort of red flag. So I haven't taken the time to consider what the other things might be. I mean, on the surface level, I can't see what else really would have halted this movie from moving forward. It was a huge success, both critically and commercially. It's already been out for 2 years right now. I would assume this movie is in its middle stage of production right now. But then again, you know what? Thinking about it now, we haven't really had any significant casting announcements regarding this movie.
Right.
So that would be something you'd think 2 years after a movie, like at the level of the Batman, would kind of be pushed into production at this point, and we'd have some filming maybe we'd like to see. But you're right, that hasn't happened yet before we even got this big delay. So maybe there is something else going on, but I literally can't imagine what it was. There's so much appetite for this Matt Reeves Batman universe. I don't know why that is not DC's like priority right now. Maybe it has something to do with the the new corporate execs over at DC right now, and they want to prioritize the new cinematic universe. That would be something I would not be happy to hear about if that is the case, because I mean, I think you should stick with your movies that have that cred right now, which Matt Reeves' Batman does. Like, that movie was phenomenal, and this for like James Gunn's cinematic universe has not been tested yet. We don't know how it's going to be received. I get that you'd want to cradle that and make sure that audiences are ready for that and give it everything that it needs to be successful, but you have a winning formula right now with the Batman, so I hope that that's not the case. But regardless, very shitty news. Was not happy to see that. No.
And like, just in case people don't know, like, I think you kind of alluded to it, like the Batman is not a part of James Gunn's DC universe, but he is still, I mean, because it is a DC project, as the creative kind of like CEO with Peter Safran, he's still like involved with its release and all that, but it's not a part of his DC universe. There is another Batman movie that is a part of his DC universe, that's Batman Brave and the Bold, that he will also be working on eventually. So, I mean, I agree with you. I hope it wasn't to prioritize, the proper DCU. But I guess there was like signs that there could be a delay, because I remember when Jeffrey Wright was doing all these interviews during the Oscar season, and they were asking him about the sequel, and he said that he hadn't seen the script yet. So I was like, that should have been hit and run. I guess that
was a red flag. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm very sorry to anybody who is hearing this news from us for the first time, because that is definitely disappointing. But
agreed.
Yeah, October 2026, we can hopefully expect the Batman 2, or unless they change the name of it.
Yep. Yeah. And also on the same day as that news, that was like a really bonkers news day. Scream fans, and man, I know that we have some Scream fans that listen, and I'm just going to be completely honest. The Scream fans, not all of them, because I'm one, and I'm not like this, but they are a toxic bunch. I mean, it's like, this was news that should have been like, as a fan, you should be like excited for, and like some people really were. That Neve Campbell is coming back as Sidney Prescott.
What were people giving her shit?
The reason that they're giving her shit, because they feel like she should have like supported Melissa Barrera and not come back.
I didn't see the backlash about this, so this is news to me.
And to that, I just have to say, if you guys are going to think of it that way, then you probably would never watch any movie released by any studio, because every single production company studio has stepped in shit before. So, I mean, I'm not saying it was right that they fired her. Like, we both talked about how we thought like it was completely unwarranted to fire her. But also, I mean, I think I forgot who posted it, but someone was like, hey, I can still support Marissa Barrera, but also be happy that Neve Campbell's going to get her bag for this one and actually get the money. She probably got the money that she wanted for this one. Kevin Williamson is also directing, and that was another news that came out in the day.
That's exciting.
He like, for everyone that may not know, he of course created the franchise, and it was still heavily involved as a producer on the last two. And he really loved what the radio silence guys did with Scream 5 and 6, because he felt like it was it's respectful to the franchise, respectful to Wes Craven. So he's been involved in the franchise even when he has stopped writing them. My only concern with him directing it is, I think he only has like one feature film credit as a director,
in the 90s, right?
It's a movie called Teaching Mrs. Tingle, also turning 25, but we won't make you go sit through that one. It's not like it's like an awful movie. It has like Helen Mirren's in it, and she's great. She really kills it in the role, but it's not like a great film. And that's his only. And I think he's done episodes of like The Vampire Diaries and all that as a director, because he helped create that show too. Okay. So that is like my concern, that the one example I have is Teaching Mrs. Tingle, and it's not the best example. When I heard the story, like I said, I was excited for her, because I was like, there must have been some kind of negotiation that she was happy with, and they offered her what she felt she was worth to the franchise. And it seems like the way she announced it on Instagram, that this is going to be like kind of like the last hurrah for her. Like, she'd come back and kind of at least finish her part in it,
right?
Which is cool. But on the other hand, I think we've been talking about the Scream drama the entire time, and I think I told you then. I think I told you then when when Melissa Barrera got fired and Jenna Ortega didn't come back, and then they lost their director. Even as like a fan of the franchise, I was like, I don't know if I want another one now. If it's gonna be like, if it's gonna be all like tainted like that. But I mean, I'm excited for her, but I want to be more excited as a fan that she's coming back.
Right.
And,
I'm happy that she's made the decision to come back because clearly she's okay with it. On paper, though, like just looking at it objectively, like not considering the earlier movies, I'm just thinking like, does Neve Campbell not feel like kind of disrespected? Like it's only now that Melissa Barrera and Jenna Ortega are not coming back that now they seem that she's
they double back. Yeah.
At what point is it like the reason I'm not saying she's selling out is because she's been a huge part of this franchise. Maybe she does just want to come back and wrap everything up and put a nice bow on it before she bows out instead of kind of just leaving unceremoniously, not being present in the sixth one. That is kind of where I think like this decision comes from. But whatever it is, it's her decision. She wants to join it. Who really cares why? But just looking at it that way, I'm like, damn, girl, you are worth more than that. Honestly, like you've been one of the
face of it, other than
face of this year's one of the final girls of all time. And honestly, I don't know. I just think she's worth that. But I get, us being completionists, I would want, if I were such a big part of a franchise like that, I would also want a say in how it gets concluded too. And I can't really see an eighth happening after all this drama. I feel like this will really be the last one. So maybe that is a big part of why she accepted the role. But interesting to see where it goes from here. I'm cautiously optimistic about Kevin Williamson being in the director's chair too, only because, teaching Mrs. Tingle aside, this is really like this series is his bread and butter. I feel like he can make a competent Scream movie. He created it, and it's been a long time since that, like you said, 25 years since that mishap. So hopefully he's learned a lot and will bring something to this series. So very much excited though for both of them being involved. This is what I would really want to see to justify a seventh movie after the fiasco of the last, couple months with this series.
And by the way, too, like I think it probably won't be too long. I know that I think Courtney Cox is probably going to come back too. They probably want to wait to announce like what returns are going to happen. For like down the line or whatever. And Courtney Cox has always been down to come back. So I mean, that's cool. And they seem like they enjoy making the movies together. Hayden Panettiere is another one that could be coming back too. Because she survived the last movie and she's a fan favorite from Scream 4 as well. So I think there will be other announcements that will probably hopefully drown out this whole like should she have taken the part, because I know like the way you said it too, because someone was talking to me, they were like, oh, they like backed up the Brinks truck for her and like gave her what she wanted, and then one of my other friends was like, well, they could afford to back up the Brinks truck because they got rid of 2 actresses, so like that's why there was money in the budget to give her, I guess.
I'm smiling. I've never heard that expression before, backing up the Brinks truck, but that's fucking hilarious. That's awesome. I knew exactly what you meant when you said it, and I've never heard it before. That's great.
but that is something to think about though. Yeah, like I mean, like there was money in the budget because got 2 people weren't coming back, but I hope it wasn't like a case of like, oh, like we settled for her. I mean, because I don't think that is. I think they finally probably realized that she is very important to that franchise. Now, the 6th one still made money without her, and that was fine. But I think there was a lot of reasons why it did. But one, it was like everyone was excited about the whole like New York setting. Jenna Ortega became like a bigger star.
Definitely, her star was rising big time.
Yeah, but I also think they are very much aware of how important Neve Campbell is to that, because even though she isn't even in Scream 5 all that much, they certainly like kind of. The marketing was centered around her. A lot of the trailers she was featured in a lot. Her face is like front and center on the Scream 5 posters, so they know that she's important. I don't know why they didn't realize that with Scream 6, because there's some weird stuff going on in Spyglass, but at least she's back now, and if it is like she said, like it feels like it might be like a last hurrah kind of a wrap up Sydney's story. Now, like we love like these movies to varying degrees.
Right.
I think it should be her last one because they have to make a lot of excuses for this to keep happening to her, like over and over again. Like I remember in like I thought it was great that she was in Scream V, but it was a very like kind of loose way to get her involved in that new story. It doesn't. I want it to make sense. I guess if it's going to be the last one, like I hope it makes sense that this is happening to her again. It's not just kind of like like here we go again kind of scenario.
Right.
I guess another thing that makes it kind of difficult too is Neve Campbell has said before that she doesn't want Sydney like to die or anything like that. So I wonder what kind of surprise you could have with her coming back. Too, if you kind of not, your final girl's going to be safe, probably.
It's a good question, a good point too. Like, if she's not going to die, then it's just going to be another movie of Sydney defeating Ghostface. I don't really know what room there is left for originality at this point. 7th movie in, if she is untouchable, I don't really want to see her go either. It was kind of feel like she survived all this just to die in the last one would kind of be, anticlimactic, but.
Yeah,
I don't know. Time will tell, I guess. That movie is scheduled to come out later this year or early next year?
No, it looks like they're going to start shooting soon. I think the rumor I heard is that they wanted to try to come out like around the same time that Scream VI did.
Oh, okay. So like
when it
came
January,
out, like February, March.
March. Yeah. But that being said, that also feels really quick. So I hope they're not like rushing it. Like you said, take your time and make sure it's right. But yeah, excited for her. It was weird to see that discourse online where it's just like, I think it's so easy. Like I said, it feels like a lot of people think that these franchises are I said this offline, like these are theirs, and Scream fans feel that way about Scream. Like they are really like, they think they can dictate like where it goes, and at a certain point, it's just like. We have no idea what she might have had a conversation with Melissa Barrera about like, hey, I'm going to take it. This is not like this is not like a ding against you or anything like that. It could have easily been like two adults that talked about this before this got announced. Like no one knows anything.
This was
like,
Neve Campbell's series long before Melissa Barrera ever stepped into this role. So she doesn't really owe anybody an explanation, I don't think.
Yeah. So Another round with Ghostface. Exactly. It's a good one. Yeah.
Good point. Moving back over to sort of the negative news, we got an update on something that I honestly, thinking about it now, I have not really been following this much, like mentally. Like I kind of didn't even realize this was a thing, although we might have talked about it before. But Salem's Lot, the remake, which I'm guessing is a film. I don't know if it's a show. I didn't want to say it wrong in case it's a different format, but skipping theaters, so it's a movie. So the Salem's Lot remake, skipping theaters, going right to its debut on Max, the streaming service. Now I just innately don't like that because champion of cinema and movie theaters, but I don't really, as far as like where to watch the Salem's Lot, I have no dog in that fight. I've never seen the original, so I'm not too upset as a fan of Salem's Lot, but as a movie fan, like that fucking sucks, and I hate that HBO and Warner Brothers are just able to let that happen as much as they do. But what's your opinion on all that?
Well, I will say I guess the only positive thing, because how Warner Brothers has been. I'm glad they didn't just like use it as a tax write-off and they are releasing it. Because like they've been known lately to kind of just shelve movies that were finished. Like this was supposed to come out in 2022. It was kind of supposed to have like the same similar release date as It and It Chapter 2. They were like they were positioning it to kind of be like that kind of hit. And then they got delayed. Then they got delayed to the same day that they had it originally, where Evil Dead Rise opened, and they actually pulled it from that day and released Evil Dead Rise on that day instead. And then they had to do reshoots as well. So that was like the excuse. And then the reason why you probably said you never really heard much about it is because like once they pulled it off that last date, it really was like, where the fuck is Salem's Lot? Like no one was talking about it. Yeah, just in limbo. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they are at least releasing it, but from what I was talking to some people at Movie Web too, they thought that movie could be successful if it was in theaters. They were kind of surprised that they're going the Max route, especially because David Zaslav said recently that he's all about theaters and wants to like make sure these movies are made for like the cinema. And
full of shit.
I was like,
okay,
no, you're not.
David. No, you're not.
Yeah,
you're not fooling anybody.
But I mean, at least it is coming out. But
yeah, that is good news. At least that it's coming out, that it's being made and like not scrapped, like you mentioned. But disappointing that it's going right to streaming. I don't know much about this. I mean, there's a couple cast members I recognize. Lewis Pullman, who took his turn starring in Top Gun Maverick, and I think he's Bill Pullman's son too, which is pretty cool. Yeah. He's leading it. There's a Game of Thrones alumni actor in there whose name I won't bother butchering. A couple other decent, some up and comers. Looks like a pretty young cast, but the director is a name that I do not recognize. Gary Dauberman. Do you recognize his work?
I know he did writing on like the It movie, so there's that. I think that's why they were cool with him like directing this and adapting it.
Yes, he did. He also did. He wrote a fair amount of the Conjuring verse movies. He wrote both of Nuns. He wrote Annabelle Comes Home and Annabelle Creation as well. I'm just seeing this now. And he developed that Swamp Thing TV series from a few years ago too.
Oh, nice.
Interesting.
Well, look at that. Well, some of those are good. So there's that. when you like ran with like when you started with like the Nun and the Nun 2, I was like, and then I was like, and then you said
are better.
Yeah.
And he wrote the first It, which is really great. So that's I mean that's semi promising. But he's directing, I guess, Salem's Lot. So
for people that don't know what this Salem Lot is about, Arthur Ben Mears returns to his childhood home of Jerusalem's Lot in search of inspiration for his next book, only to discover his hometown is being preyed upon by a bloodthirsty vampire.
That is such a Stephen King plot. It's
it sounds very much
which it is his IP, but that is such a Stephen King plot. Oh my god.
I've never actually seen the 1979 Salem's Lot.
Anniversary year.
I don't know if it's good. I mean, it might be a good time to watch it.
35,
or
45.
I do. I mean, I know like the image because like the image of like that vampire is like I've seen it, online and stuff like that. But I've just never seen the movie itself, so I don't know if it's good or not. But I know some people are fans of it. So and they were excited about this remake, which is why they were pretty bummed when they just like pulled it from the calendar and didn't tell anyone when it's coming out. It actually doesn't have an official release date yet. It just says sometime this year on Max. So hopefully sometime soon, because the movie is more than finished. So it's ready to go.
Totally.
Yeah. I feel like I want to let you kind of have the next story, because like I thought about you first when I heard about the Yorgos Lanthimos. That has a release date now, and the fact that we're getting another film from him so soon after Poor Things, which is great.
Super great. Yeah, that Kinds of Kindness, Yorgos Lanthimos' next movie. I believe it was shot while Poor Things was in post-production, so that hence why it's coming out so soon after, which is awesome. That guy Yorgos is clearly a workhorse. I believe it was given its official expected release date of June the 21st of this year, so we have that to look forward to in just a few short months. Plot at this point is still kept under wraps, but like a lot of his movies, it is according to IMDb anyway, it's a comedy drama, which a lot of his movies, for those that have seen his works, even if they're kind of a genre mashup,
it's gonna be weird.
Yeah, it'll be fucking whack. It looks like he used a few of his collaborators from Poor Things. Emma Stone and Willem Dafoe are both also in Kinds of Kindness, and he's got some other regulars. Looks like he's working with Jesse Plemons is in this movie, Margaret Qualley, Hunter Schafer, who's a rising star right now, Hong Chow, who I was really surprised and excited to see is in this movie. Love her. She had a great 2022 with The Whale and The Menu. Really love her in both of those.
I love The Menu. It's so good.
Yeah, I got to rewatch that actually here soon. Yeah, really great cast. Looks like they will all fit wonderfully in a Yorgos Lanthimos movie. Cannot wait to see what this movie is about, because I'll say it again, I'll die on the hill. He is one of my favorite directors working, and one of the most creatively original directors I think that are putting out movies today. And I love love his work. I need to see his first movie though, but I think I've seen everything since Killing of a Sacred Deer, so I'm pretty up to date on my Yorgos movies. But yeah, very excited for Kinds of Kindness.
And like I know we don't have this like on our docket to talk about, but I'm just gonna mention it briefly because Emma Stone is like on a roll because like she is gonna be in this. She's also in Ari Aster's next project with Pedro Pascal, like Joaquin Phoenix, another A24 film. So they're still happy with him, even though Bo was afraid to like make all the money.
That was a gift to Ari Aster for sure. I don't think they really cared how it did.
Yeah, Luke Grimes is also in this movie. Austin Butler is in this Ari Aster movie as well. They said plot details are scarce, though. Some sources just describe the project as being a Western, so I don't. We'll see.
Yeah, what's it called again? I can't remember the name of it. Eddington or something?
Eddington, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
a contemporary Western from Ari Aster. That's great. I mean, I hope he splashes in some horror elements in there, and it would feel like a real Ari Aster movie, but cannot wait for that either. That cast is juicy.
Yeah, I agree. And all right, this is a biggie one because this trailer came out and a lot of people had stuff to say about it.
I don't think we've really chatted. I don't know
where anyone
else lands on this trailer, but I'm excited to talk about it so I can share my thoughts on it. But yeah, so we got the Crow remake. The first look at it. It got its first trailer. I got to start off by saying the song choice. This is another example of a great song and trailer pairing. I did really like how the song went with. I know it was an Ozzy Osbourne song, but I do not know which one it was, so I can't really credit it. But if you haven't seen the trailer, at least watch it once. But what were your thoughts of it?
Oh yeah. Okay, so I mean we talked about it before. I love The Crow, the original, and and I try to like be like as optimistic as I can when it comes to like remakes like this because like they tried to make sequels to The Crow and there was like even a short-lived TV show back in the day and it's just something that they've never been able to get right again like after that first movie. And I think a lot of people know like at one point like just Momoa was attached to a Crow project and then there was even like screen test footage of him like in character and then that fell apart and then it became this project where that Bill Skarsgård is leading and I don't think it looks bad. There were a lot of people that thought it looks not good.
I've seen that.
I guess it doesn't really seem like it has the feel of the original movie. Like the original movie is just so dark, and this one I didn't get that vibe really. In fact, in a lot of ways it looked like The Crow by way of John Wick. That was like the visual style I got from it.
and some of the gunplay, I agree.
Yeah. Like I said, I mean, I try to be like, okay, I can't really judge it until you see like the finished product, but I wasn't like in love with it. But I don't think it looks like a dumpster fire like some people seem to think it does. But what do you think?
Okay, so here's where my opinion doesn't really hold as much weight as yours as a super fan of the first one. I have seen the original The Crow once. It was last year, maybe in 2022. And to be honest, like a lot of movies, I can't really judge fully until I get that rewatch in. So I will definitely be rewatching it before because I plan on seeing this 2024 iteration. And I liked The Crow. I didn't like love it, but again, I don't have that nostalgia behind it. I really think a rewatch will kind of pump that up for me and I'll appreciate it more. So I'm excited. I think I really won't bother comparing what I think about them until I see both, until I rewatch the first and then see this. But that being said, with the comparisons out of the way, just from what I saw and not keeping in mind the original, I liked what I saw. I like that the trailer at least seems to be taking it in a gory, like rated R direction, which I'm trying to look at here and see. I should have brought that up too. I think that was something that I was impressed with, that they kind of seem like they're going all in on that at least. So. I really like that. There's some big moments of violence and gore to back it up in the trailer that I thought was really great. I think Bill Skarsgård, it's fantastic casting as Eric Draven. Like, couldn't have pictured somebody better. I can appreciate that they're kind of taking a slightly different approach in like his look of the character. Like, I don't know if I fully dig his haircut, but like the makeup and everything, like he looks kind of like what I would think a 2024 version of The Crow would look like. But yeah, I think just like the really where this movie like kind of gets me is like in the plot. I just really like what this movie's all about, and it's a great like revenge love story. And it's gonna be Bill Skarsgård kind of dressed all in black like a goth dude fucking up a bunch of people that murdered his true love, and I'm all about that.
Yep.
That give me that. That sounds awesome to me.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of on board at this point.
I think what the sentiment that a lot of fans have is probably what is really shared by what the director of the original movie said, Alex Proyas,
Yes.
I believe. He filmed, of course, he did the 1994 version with Brandon Lee, and he said his reservations stem not from some sense of proprietorship, but from fidelity to the original film star Brandon Lee, who died when a gun malfunctioned during production. He says, "I really don't get any joy from seeing negativity about any fellow filmmaker's work, and I'm certain the cast and crew really had all good intentions, as we all do on any film. So it pains me to say any more on this topic, but I think the fans' response speaks volumes. The Crow is not just a movie. Brandon Lee died making it, and it was finished as a testament to his lost brilliance and tragic loss. It's his legacy, and that's how it should remain." I mean, I understand. I mean, hey, he directed the movie, and this thing happened. A really tragic thing happened on the set of that movie, so I understand the kind of like the sentimentality behind him feeling that way about it being Brandon Lee's legacy. I think a lot of fans feel that way too, because it's such a tragic story, but it also, I think I've mentioned it to you before, why the movie I think sticks with me so much is there's all these like kind of themes of like life and death running through the Crow, and then you have this like real life tragic thing that happened to the lead in that, and it's hard not to like think about that when you're watching it. And I think that is something that has lacked, at least on the one or two follow-ups I've seen, is that connection is missing, and that is honestly a personal thing to the viewer who's watching it. I mean, that some people just think of it that way. So I understand why he said what he said, but I mean, it's also an IP that isn't fully Brandon Lee's. I mean, it's based on a graphic novel that predates Brandon Lee.
That's
so
right.
So they can totally make another one if they wanted to, because it's it's not necessarily his, but I also get what he's trying to say. How do you feel about his comments about that?
I don't know. I get, as a director, like if I was happy with my vision of my movie, like I probably would feel a little bit invaded by having my movie remade, especially where that's just such a common thing to do in Hollywood these days. And I'm always shitting on the concept of remaking movies, especially ones that are perfectly fine the first time around. But for whatever reason, like, this is just an exception. Like some I like, some I'm vehemently opposed to. I don't really know that The Crow is somehow untouchable just because Brandon Lee died while it was filming. Like, I don't really agree with that. I think how it comes across to me anyway is that Alex Proyas is just kind of gatekeeping it and doesn't want it to be remade, and is kind of like sprinkling like Brandon Lee's tragic death on top of it as like a justification. And I don't blame him for doing it. I'm not saying he's wrong for doing it, but that's just how it comes across to me. I don't think that there's anything, like you said, that isn't even the first iteration of this character, like the movie. It's a comic that predates that 1994 movie, so it's not really theirs just because they made it first and they don't want to see it remade, or at least from the director's standpoint. So, I mean, yeah, if maybe this was a few years ago and it wasn't as commonplace as it is now, maybe I'd stick up a little bit more for it. But I'm on board. I like what I see, but then again, like that is without like an absolute love for the original movie. So do with that what you will. Doesn't really mean much, but regardless, I'll be excited to watch The Crow again. If anything, it's going to give me a reason to revisit that film, which I'm excited to do.
Right.
And then
I think it has an anniversary too this year as well. So
which honestly we should cover before this comes out. Honestly, that's just kind of doing our work for us. So,
yeah, pretty much. I always thought that it was which made it all the more tragic that when Brandon Lee was shot on set, it was the last scene that he had to really do that involved any kind of like gunplay at all. And it's just like, in the moment in which it happened is like that. It's him coming home and seeing what they're like doing to his fiance, whatever, girlfriend, and then he gets shot, and that was when that happened. I mean, of course, they didn't use that in like the film, but that was the scene that they were shooting, and you know, he kind of had like a reputation for kind of being a prankster and joking around. So like when he got hit and then didn't get up, a lot of people thought he was messing around, and then of course it turned out not to be that. And I forget the actor's name, but the actor who fired the guy, who it's not his fault, it was like, all that stuff should have been handled by, as we know now with the whole Rust thing, like by the armor or whatever, all the prop people who were supposed to be checking all this stuff. But he held a lot of guilt for years after.
No doubt, right?
That happened. Yeah, I think he left Hollywood for like a bit. I think he passed away a few years ago, but like he really didn't want to be in that industry anymore after, because he felt so bad, even though it wasn't his fault at all. But I mean, it's hard not to think about it. Like, and I think that probably has shaped my view of that movie, though, and maybe why I look at it in a bigger, like, higher regard than maybe like someone like you, because you're just, the experiences are just different. But yeah, man, I think that, like, just bringing back to the trailer, just one thing I'll say, I think Bill Skarsgård looks good. The complaints that some people had about that first image that came out of him, like as a character, I thought he looked fine. I didn't think it looked bad. I know there were some comparisons to like Jared. Someone made comparisons to like Jared Leto's Joker and Suicide Squad. They thought he looked too much like that, and I was like, okay. I think the image looks fine. I think, I also, why I'm trusting it a bit more is like Bill Skarsgård is a good actor, so so hopefully having him lead it will be good.
I think so. I think it's great casting. I trust the movie with it in his hands.
Yep. Yeah. But overall, I'm glad I'm not hopping on like the hate train, though, because one person I follow on X was like, I should have known not to come on this platform today when this trailer came out, because everyone was just like, ripping it apart. But and honestly, some of them that were ripping it apart were using the Brandon Lee angle as an excuse to rip it apart, and that's another reason I don't think you should use that as your angle to, just assume it's going to be horrible.
Right. That makes no sense.
Yeah.
I get being, gatekeeping it because an attachment to Brandon Lee, that kind of makes sense that there are people in that camp, but ultimately I don't think that is what would, take precedent over the movie being remade.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This before we get to box office, this other story that we're going to share with you, just because we've shared it when it first happened, and we just want to keep updating you.
A new update in the Jonathan Majors saga for those that maybe. I think this only came out today, so
today,
yeah. Pretty new.
It says Jonathan Majors is sued by ex-girlfriend Grace Jabari for defamation, assault, and battery. Fallout. It says fallout from a New York jury's conviction of Jonathan Majors for misdemeanor reckless assault and harassment has erupted in a lawsuit against him. She filed on Tuesday, so today, and she brings claims for battery, not just from the 2023 incident, which was where this trial was, but this is another date in 2021. So that predates that. And she also accuses him of subjecting her to a pattern of pervasive domestic abuse that began in 2021 and extended through 2023, detailing several instances of alleged physical violence. The defamation part comes in because I don't know who convinced him to do an interview with Good Morning America after, the whole verdict came out, but he did, and it didn't do him any favors. He just looks like, what I gather now, and it sucks to, like, we were talking about this before, like, this is like the craziest case of like, oh, how the mighty have fallen, where it was like, oh, this guy's going places, and then they're like, oh, no, he's not. But what I've gathered from what I've gathered from him recently, he comes off as like a total narcissist, and that is what that interview kind of displayed to me. The
picture that it painted,
but she's using the defamation claim from that interview because he says he, basically called her a liar, so that he never put his hands on her, and that is a part of her defamation claim, that she publicly said these things in an interview on TV. So I don't know. I mean, it was something that we wanted to update you on, because I was like, I just don't see a road where this kind of goes away eventually and he can get back into his career a bit. I don't really
see that happening either.
Like
maybe if he had more of a career beforehand, but he was at this point still like a rising star, and that star seems to have been snuffed out at this point. It would be different if he had, 15 or 20 years of career underneath him at this point. He could have a redemption down the road, but I think that he's just kind of gone with the time. He's not coming back. I don't think. I'm with you. Get that bag, sister.
And a lot, yeah, exactly right. And a lot of people have made comments about he's dating an actress right now named Megan Good, and she has stuck by him through all of this. A lot of people have kind of questioned why she has. I also kind of like, because I've seen her in a few movies and stuff, and I like her. But I definitely, every time I see images of them together, I like side-eyed it. I'm like, whoa, it doesn't seem like a good look for you either. To be like,
no, definitely not.
To be his ride or die right now, like I don't know. It's like this kind of felt like this kind of relationship that he had with his ex. It really felt like it was both of them. Maybe they were both very volatile with each other. And yeah, but like I don't know how you can be like a woman and see all that stuff, and then also be like cool with like dating him right now. I don't know. It just feels like a really weird move on her part. But she is sticking by her man.
Yeah, I think it's odd too. All I'm hoping is that this is kind of the last we will be covering Jonathan Majors for a while. Personally, I'm getting sick of these developments. Like, at least now that the trial's over, I had no problem covering it while it was still ongoing. But like now it's like, the jury's out. We know who he is, what he's been convicted of. We know we're not going to be covering him in any, casting news anytime soon. So at this point, like, goodness, like, when is it going to end? I don't feel bad for him anymore now that we know. So fuck him.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, and both of us in the beginning when we first covered it, we were like, hey, like, this turns out not to be true. Like, this was one of those things where we weren't judging it. Like,
100%.
The surface,
like anybody.
Like two sides to every story. But of course, now the more that you hear, it's just like, I think we were like, okay, we can form an opinion now. And
definitely,
I agree with you too. I hope this is the last that we have to talk about it. Because it's a little too TMZ, but but it was something that we covered before, and I was like, when I saw the story, I was just like, wow, the hits just keep on coming for him. So, and at this point, it's like the universe kind of makes things happen for a reason sometimes, and I kind of think this is happening to him a lot because the universe is like, yeah, you fucked up. So that's my personal opinion on that now. Yeah, exactly. All right. We got box office.
Yes, I was wondering if you had our numbers from last. I have our numbers for our predictions, but I did not look at the box office for Arthur the King and how it did.
Well, it didn't do great. It opened in third place. It made $7.6 million.
Oh boy.
It's another miss for old Marky Mark. Definitely felt like a paycheck movie from Mark Wahlberg. So yeah,
hopefully a good one, Mark.
I kind of forgot. Did I say 12 for this one?
You said 12, and I went 10.
Oh, you win again. You're much better at this lately than I am.
There's lots of years, lots of weekends left.
I thought that dog ankle was gonna put butts in the seats, man. I thought they were gonna.
That's not a bad guess, but yeah, thank you. Not exactly proud of it, but yeah. Oh well, we got somewhat of a bigger movie to predict this weekend. Again, like, this is one we talked about offline. I have not seen any of the previous installments for this series, so I really do not care. I won't be seeing this one, but I do expect that it'll bring in certainly much more than 7 million. But this weekend, it's Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, which I think is the second movie of the current running trajectory that this series is on, of the modern sequels.
How
did Afterlife do?
The blending of the new cast with the nostalgia of the original cast.
Legacy sequels, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm trying to pull that up right now. Actually, I think I have it for you. It didn't do poorly. It did well. I think that the thing about it was you know, it worked out. I think it helped that you know, Jason Reitman directed it, so there's that whole connection with, you know, his dad having directed
Right.
the original movie. It also heavily played on the nostalgia. I mean, it was. I think they did a decent job of blending the new characters with the old, but it really was a like, hey, remember this cool thing from back in the day? We brought it back, and everyone's back. And that's how it kind of felt. And this one
feels that way
from the trailers. Yeah, this one from the trailer seems like they are doubling down on nostalgia, and yeah, it seems like the original cast maybe has like a lot more to do in this one too. This is like a complete blending of you know, Paul Rudd was in the last one, and you have all these like new people, you know, and bringing back Bill Murray and then Aykroyd and all these other people that were in the original movie. You know, I mentioned this to Jackson offline, and I think I've said it on the show before, but I can't remember. Like I said, I feel like I am betraying my generation by saying I don't love Ghostbusters from 1984. And I know like this is another franchise that people ride or die for, but I've never been like just overly excited about them. So that's why I almost forgot this was coming out this weekend. But to be fair, Ghostbusters Afterlife, it had a domestic opening weekend of $44 million, ended up making 129.3 million domestic and 204.3 million worldwide. It came out in 2021, so we were still recovering from like the whole COVID pandemic thing. So I mean, that's a decent hole for like, you know, that time.
Oh, for sure.
This one's tracking around the same area too, like 50 million. It's crazy too. Like this franchise is not that huge internationally. Like it only made $74.9 million overseas Afterlife, so it's not a huge like the way that some of these
That's interesting. I would have thought this would. I mean, once I heard those numbers from Afterlife, could kind of clue in that clearly this wasn't, you know, a global sensation of a movie, but I would have thought this would definitely have legs overseas because I just seems like it would have that sort of appeal. So interesting to me that it doesn't. So you say it's tracking what in between 45 and 50? Frozen Empire is, yeah. I don't really know. I have no I don't have my finger on the pulse for what the appetite for this franchise is. I really do not know where to go here. But I'm thinking low end. I don't know. Like I'd probably just go right up the low and go with like 45. Probably be my final guess. What do you think?
I was about to swipe that one. You beat me to it.
We can match.
You know what? This is the first time I feel like it's not gonna open that much higher than Afterlife. I feel like the audience that wants to see it kind of is the same as saw Afterlife in 2021. So I know this isn't as fun for everyone listening, but I'm gonna match 45 because I really do think it's gonna land like right there.
Nice. So no competition this week. I guess we'll just both see how we fare this time next week. But yeah, I'm just kind of with you. I mean, maybe we'll both be wrong and we will be under the total. So time will tell. But I've seen the trailers for this movie. I didn't really see much reaction from the audience at any time I've seen it in the theater. So yeah.
And other box office news, Kung Fu Panda was number one again over the weekend. It made $30.1 million, dropped 48%. It was kind of hefty for a kids movie, but it's still number one. Dune Part 2 is still doing well, 28.5 million over the weekend. It's still in second place. It has officially crossed the $200 million mark domestically. It has made, as of now, 204.7 million here domestic and 498.1 million worldwide. There are some trades that still think there's gas in the tank to get this to $1 billion. I don't know if it is.
I wouldn't guess at this point. I mean, maybe, but I'm not thinking. I did think that before it debuted. I don't think so anymore. Regardless, it's in for a great box office haul. I did hear though, but I can't remember what site, but I did see news that it had crossed the 500 million mark internationally.
Yeah. So I mean, that's good.
Maybe
it's doing
those
well
numbers, but yeah. For sure, that's great.
It's doing well enough to make sure you get that Doom Messiah. You're gonna get that Doom Messiah, guys. So, and on a quick note, because this story like completely blew my mind, and I thought it was crazy, and people thought I made it up. when I posted it on my IG story, and then Variety reported it. When you go to the movie theaters, guys, don't get drunk and try to jerk off during the movie because that's gross.
Yeah, someone didn't take that advice.
Yeah, this guy did during Love Lies Bleeding, and while I do think it was horrible that some people circulated that picture on Twitter, like, and people were retweeting it and not censored, they just had it out there for everyone to see. I do think that sucks. But I don't know, make better choices. Maybe don't. He had like 3, I think it was 2 or 3 like fireball nips on this train next to him. Vape pen. There's a lot of stuff there that was like I think he just thought he was at home and got drunk. But like, yeah, that was ridiculous. And I was like, that is interesting because that Love Lies Bleeding has gotten a really good response from critics and stuff, but that part of its opening weekend was dominated most of its coverage this weekend.
That's a shame.
That was the movie.
Because it looks great. I can't wait for that.
Yeah, it actually looks really good. So yeah, everyone make better choices when you go to the movies. Don't do that.
Keep it a friendly, relaxing experience for all.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
I think without further ado, that is all the news that we had from the last week or so. It was a busy news week, and we are now headed into our anniversary episode of Zack Snyder's Dawn of the Dead. Very excited to get into that. So this wraps up episode 159. We're on the tail end, back half of the 100s now, getting closer to 200 than we are to 100. So thanks, guys, for tuning in. Yeah, exactly. Crazy how the time flies, but thanks guys for sticking with us for another week. If you are still listening, we really appreciate you guys hanging out with us till the end of the episode. By now, if you don't know where to find us, that you guys can find us anywhere. We're active on social media. Anywhere you guys can find a podcast, you can find Back to the Blockbuster there. Check us out on playlists. They're our network. We love to show them some love because they take care of us, and you can get that anywhere on any app store with regardless of what device you're using. And again, I've been Jackson, and he has been Gaius. Back to the Blockbuster, episode 159 is over. We will see you on the next one. Take care of yourself, guys.